Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Thanks for joining me today. In this video, we're going to discuss when you hear people talking in public about a certain event, you know you're right around the corner from it. So it seems like, and maybe you guys can leave me a comment and let me know if you've seen this. It seems like everywhere that you go nowadays, people are talking about housing. They're talking about inflation. They're talking about the economy being horrific and not being able to pay for things. Another thing that I've noticed people mention is that they've depleted their savings because of not being able to pay for the increase in rent, for the increase in cost of food, for the increase in pretty much everything. And typically, whenever you get to a point where standard talking points of conversation and grocery checkout counters, in the hairdresser's chair, going to complete daily tasks, errands, and just regular person-to-person, face-to-face interaction, when you're at that point in an economy and people are talking about these financial issues, that economy is about to go. It's interesting because throughout the cycles of economies, if you look at history, you've got two main types of economic cycles: efficiency cycles and equity cycles. And efficiency cycles are typically characterized by low levels of government regulation, free trade, pretty cheap and easy money moving around, and relatively easy task of making a buck. Whereas an equity cycle, which is what we are definitely in now, you have a shrinking away from free trade. You have a shrinking away from globalism, effectively, and a shrinking away from alliances. Equity cycles tend to bring about war cycles. It's interesting. There was a movie that was filmed a while back. It was called Arrival. Did you see it? It was with Amy Adams, and it's actually a really good film. And it was about aliens coming and language experts being summoned to try and decipher the messages that they were trying to emit to humanity. And the language expert, played by Amy Adams in this film, highlights the Sanskrit word for war. And she uses this as kind of a litmus test of, are the other potential linguists going to be worth their salt in figuring out what the aliens are saying? And it ultimately ended up being a dispute about cows, or amongst cows. So effectively, finite resources, a dispute about finite resources. It is also interesting because if you look at another language that's very old, a Semitic language, Hebrew, that the word for war, milchama, has the root in it, lechem, bread. When people are speaking in the checkout line about not being able to pay for bread, not being able to pay for rent, not being able to find a house, that equity cycle, that desire, that move of money in an economy towards equalizing disparities or perceived disparities, oftentimes will end up manifesting in a competition for scarce or supposedly scarce resources, resulting in war. When people are talking about things in the checkout lines, and when you hear this in the seat of a hairdresser's salon, we should be taking note of this. Now, it is a very difficult thing for most people to deal with their own cognitive dissonance. Most people don't like to grapple with the unknown. Most people don't like change. Can you blame them? Change ushers in more unknown. Most individuals are going to do what they're told to do. And they, especially if they've not embraced adulthood, they're not capable of grasping giant moves in history being lived out in the present. What we experience in the present is somebody else's history in the future, except we're living it now. So the question is, what in 5 years, 10 years, are people going to think about this time and space right now? Whereas many other people not generally my followers. Y'all are some of the most witted, sound mind, historically literate people out there, of good heart and of good character. I know that y'all know this. But in the future, are people going to wonder, how is it that they thought things were good? How is it that they thought that things were just going to blow over and go away? How is it that they thought that there was going to be some type of fix that was just going to magically be downloaded? Whenever people are discussing these issues in public as common sources of general discussion and conversation, you know that you're at a breaking point. And so the issue is how is it going to unfold? The equity cycle also is traditionally characterized by empowered labor, more union activity, and more demand, popular demand for the government to do something, do anything, more government regulation. We are seeing both of these right now. The recent issue with the yellow trucking company going under, secondary to like union advocacy and union work and threatened strikes, etc. That's only one part of it as to the reason why Yellow went under. They actually got a bailout, ironically enough, in 2020. If I'm not mistaken, the United States taxpayers really had a 30% stake in that company. So we're the ones who get screwed over by that. And I'm sure there are people who are far more skilled and capable in logistics and know that industry better than I do. Maybe you can leave a comment below as to the full impacts of this. But one of the key features of an equity cycle is in the effort to make things more equal, everything becomes more expensive. Whatever a government policy is named, the net inverse is the result. So the more that people seek justice and equity from the government, what do you suppose they're going to get? More injustice, more inequity, greater disparity, more power concentrated in the hands of a few. And so this cycle that we're in right now is a cycle where more regulation is going to be demanded by the populace. It's going to be demanded by people who just want to be rescued. And it is a very politically volatile time because as people get more desperate, and this is why if you've been paying attention to my channel and other channels advocating preparedness, like you know this to be true, people who are hungry, people who can't defend themselves, and people who are medically needy, they are ripe for subjugation from a government, and really they're ripe for being herded into whatever political narrative that the higher-ups want them to believe. Anything to give them some sort of relief. Some of the worst expansions and overreaches in power came through FDR during the Great Depression, when people were crying out for somebody from the government to help. We're in a vulnerable position politically like that right now. And it stems from a few things. Number one, a lack of self-sufficiency. And I get that not everybody is going to have the capability to live on a homestead. But neediness is a state of mind. You can still be poor and have class. You can still be low on the numbers totem pole financially and have wherewithal and skills and capability. The lack of self-sufficiency is a place mentally of helplessness. That is a ripe place mentally for subjugation and for abuse from governments, from narcissistic individuals, from cults, from any type of groupthink, really, that would put people into do what you're told, we know better category. Union bosses can do this. Government officials do this. Whenever you hear people talking about these issues in public, at the checkout, or during completing your errands, remember this. People often seek to offload their emotionally overwhelmed state through common interaction. Their subconscious is trying to process everything, and they're looking for solutions. And unfortunately, for men and women who are not self-possessed and who don't value freedom, they are willing to trade that freedom for the illusion of temporary security. This is another feature of the equity cycle, that people don't want freedom, they want the veneer of security. They need regulation. They want to be safe. They want the government to protect them. That's a very dangerous place to be. And it puts people who stand for freedom on the negative side of popular and public opinion in many cases. And so ultimately, it is a time when historically people's economic fears and their vulnerabilities are exploited during times of violent revolution. So we need to be aware of this. And one of the ways that we maintain our own sovereignty and maintain our own wherewithal and our position emotionally from a security standpoint is to know that we can meet our bases, beans, bullets, and band-aids. This is not only a provisionary move in having stuff and having supplies, but this is also a skill set development. I submit to you, being spiritually strong too and emotionally disciplined and trying to unhook from all of the tech inputs for quiet time with the Lord and quiet time by yourself. Even if you're not a person of belief and not really spiritually into that sort of thing, being quiet on a walk and contemplative, unhooked from devices and unhooked from input, and allowing one of the most powerful computers, the most powerful computer that's ever existed, your brain, allowing your brain to process. I think most people, when it comes right down to it, have sacrificed their potential. People were not this stupid as they are, as your standard average person is nowadays. They were made stupid. People have been made to be illiterate, made to be functionally incapacitated because they haven't been using their brains. They've been absorbing things and not thinking for themselves. Having quiet time, unhooked from devices and unhooked from technological inputs, allows you to process things and allows you and your brain to put together solutions for you in your own situation, and also prayer. So friends, I just wanted to reflect on these things in this video today and encourage us to be aware, encourage us to be in a place of readiness mentally, physically, and spiritually. And self-sufficiency is a big part of that. How can we do this? What are the practical so what steps? If you have any capability whatsoever for cultivating your land, even if it's 1/8 of an acre, even if it's just a tiny little area on your patio, you need to take positive steps to turn that land into food producing something. A, this is going to give you control of your circumstances, and B, it gives you something positive to do, even if you don't feel like you can do much else. Even if it's just growing a little corner plot of kale or spinach, or if you have a little bit of extra space, some squash, you can still plant squash and get a good crop right now because they're like 55-day maturity. You can still plant late fall crops and cold weather crops right now. I would encourage you, if you've got a little area, a little plot in your lawn, make it into something that's going to feed you instead of something that looks pretty on the cover of Better Homes and Gardens. Better Homes and Gardens need to be like Better Garden and less like home picture, Like we need homes, obviously, and structures, but the garden feeds the home. Like the home doesn't feed the garden feeds the home. So let's get our priorities right here. Practically focusing on some type of production, whatever is accessible to you. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. I want to encourage you in this, okay? It can be a real defeatist mentality to watch stuff on YouTube and think, oh, I can never do that. Or look at so-and-so's property. They had this big property. I'll never be able to do that. Or I don't have a homestead. I just live in suburbia or whatever. Or I just have a little tiny, X number of square foot plot. Listen, if you've got something, make do with what you got. You can turn it into something. Perfect is the enemy of progress, right? It is the enemy of done and complete. Any improvement that you can make is a step in the right direction. Clarity comes through movement. So every possible grand plan that you can think of, it starts with one step, a little step, planting a little pot full of herbs, whatever it is. So focusing towards production, that's going to give you more self-sufficiency, and success breeds more success. There's nothing as addictive as doing a good job and feeling proud of yourself. Then that's the beans, obviously. Storing up food and as best as possible taking advantage of sales. In Tennessee right now, we've got a 3-month holiday on sales tax for food. Of course, it can't be candy or booze or prepared foods or stuff like that. But basically prepper food, things that we would store up, it qualifies for. So now's a good time to buy for the next 3 months if you're in Tennessee. Check out the grocery outlets. If you're in the South, I'm not getting paid for this, although I really probably should. UGO, the United Grocery Outlet, that place is your friend. They have super sweet deals, and you can find some awesome savings on food there, food that's shelf stable and you can stock up on. So try and prioritize increasing your stores that way. And then also with the bullet standpoint, being self-sufficient, that's really important with your defense as well. You cannot rely, well-meaning as people are, you cannot rely on police departments. Their response time is atrocious, and when seconds count, they'll be there in minutes. So, and that was a police officer who told me that himself. So I'm not anti-police by any means. And then also with the medical industrial complex, they're not your friend. Outside of emergency trauma and a precious few other things, they're not doing a lot other than extracting wealth from the American taxpayer anymore to keep people healthy. It's not a thing. There's a cascade of interventions that start, whether it's with surgeries or unneeded drugs and unnecessary therapies that get prescribed. It's just a money-making scheme for the most part. And so the way that you increase, number one, your money, and number two, not having to go into their care grid and into their control matrix, is you provide your own skill set. You provide your own ability to take care of yourself and your family's health needs. You can do this herbally. You can study various different modalities online. I have a course that I offer. It's 4 hours. It's $129. If that course saves you one trip to the doctor, it paid for itself. Think about it that way. So I want to encourage you guys, regardless of what it is, when you see people murmuring like this, like they are right now, and you see people and you hear people in public having these conversations, that should be a cue to you to accelerate your work, and also to be listening and to be active, but also to be trusting, right? Because the Lord, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He has declared the end from the beginning. He is not going to lose any that are His. And He's promised us that He will never leave us or forsake us. And He is with us wheresoever our foot treads. He's with us. So your Heavenly Father knows your needs before you ask them. Being in prayer allows you to partner with God, if you want to think about it that way. And by submitting to Him, you're allowing Him space in your life to make manifold His mercy and His miraculous power. And so I believe in Him. I believe in Him more than I believe in any politician, more than I believe in any formula for success or any get-rich-quick scheme or anything like that. Like, I believe in the Lord God Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, and I know that He's the one who pays our bills. He's the one who feeds us. It's from His hand we eat. He is our strength and our shield and our provider. He is now, He was way back when, and He always will be. In Him there is no variance or shifting shadow. We can trust in Him. We can ever trust in Him. I hope the video was helpful for y'all. If you enjoyed it, I hope you subscribe to me here on YouTube, Patriot Nurse. I hope the video was a blessing to you. If you want to stay with me on other platforms, you can on Patreon and Subscribestar. You can also support me on cryptocurrency and PayPal if you feel so led to and inclined. Friends, that the course that I mentioned is in the description box below. If you'd like to get some training with me in an online format, you can stop, rewind, take it as many times as you need to, refresh, whatever. It's there for you in an evergreen format. So that way, when you pay for your course, it's there for you. So hope it was a blessing for y'all. I hope you have a very blessed week coming up. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid, for the Lord thy God is with thee wherever you go. Have a blessed week, guys. May the Lord bless and keep you all. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.